Morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks on Monday, the 20th day of August, year of our Lord 2019. Welcome to the John Moore Show. Well, it's good to be back. I was in Washington, D.C. last week. I'll be talking about that off and on during the week. A very good trip, productive trip, and it's good to be home. Prepper tip of the day. We encourage all of you to make sure you've got at least two. As the old saying goes from John Wesley Rawls, one is none, and two is one. Two, gravity feed water filters, high-quality gravity feed water filters. Of course, I'm a Berkey dealer. If you want Berkeys, I'll be glad to make sure you get those. There's other good ones out there. My point being, water is not optional. It really is not optional. This is Farmers Monday. We have patient waiting in agreement, my friend Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. That Facebook page is Freedom Center USA. And the telephone number down there in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri is 417-718-2597. And we're anxiously waiting for the firearms tip of the week. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Well, if I felt any better, it wouldn't be legal. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Hey, we had a great reloading class this weekend at the Freedom Center, and I got the chance. My wife bought a new toy, and I'm going to use that as a firearms tip of the week. I'm really impressed with this piece.
Okay, all right.
It is a 9mm semi-auto rifle. Technically a subgun because it shoots a pistol caliber, and it's called a Kel-Tec Sub 2000, and it's the second version. It's the 2 version, and they've really improved this thing. It's got a much better trigger. It's more accurate.
That was going to be my first question. How's the trigger on this sucker? Yeah,
the trigger is really surprisingly good. Here's the interesting thing. This weapon system weighs less than 5 pounds, has a really nice, light, relatively crisp trigger pull and a fast reset, and it will hold a 30-round Glock 9mm magazine.
All right. Now,
here's the best news of all. It costs less than a Glock handgun.
Now, the follow-up on that, is the same model available in 45 ACP?
No. It's 40 Smith & Wesson and 9mm are the available calibers. Of course, she bought the 9mm because you can run the 100 grain plus P ammo that makes over 400 foot-pounds of energy, which is the same energy as a standard 45. Except in this longer barrel, that 100 grain Corbin round runs almost 200 feet per second faster than it does out of the pistol. So you've got more energy than a 45 ACP out of this 9mm with 33 rounds. And I got to tell you, she was considerably more accurate with this than she was with the handgun from 5 yards away.
Well, that's expected. That's
and it's
pretty much
light,
a given.
It's quick. Yeah, I'm. If you're looking for a cost-effective solution for a gal in your home for home defense, I would seriously look at getting a couple of these 30-round Glock mags and look at the Kel-Tec Sub 2000. I haven't been that impressed with a product as far as performance versus price in a long time.
Well, that's good news. My concern with that Kel-Tec has always been the trigger, and you answer that question immediately. Kel-Tec is apparently going through some changes with their product line and appealing to men and women, of course, who appreciate a better quality product, aren't they?
Well, early on when Kel-Tec first started, they had a couple of products that were just huge successes, and they had a couple of products that a number of products in their handgun line that the quality wasn't there, and people weren't impressed with the triggers at all. And they're updating some of these products, and they're changing some of them, and they're coming out with some new products. And this The new version of the Sub 2000 with this really good trigger is just a neat little weapon. Here's the other thing. It folds in half to about 17 by 7 inches in diameter.
Well, that would fit
So
inside wouldn't it?
It would fit in a briefcase. It'll fit in a backpack. What a great pack rifle. And the interesting thing is with this Plus P ammo, when we chronograph the ammo, it is dramatically faster and more powerful out of that 16-inch barrel than that short-barreled handgun. I mean, this is a legitimate, effective defensive weapon.
Well, of course, I'm a big fan of 45 ACP and the 9mm Corbon, and I've been telling my pistol students forever that if you want the hottest factory loads that are safe to shoot in your pistol, you want Corbon. It's Corbon. Charlie, Oscar, Romeo, Bravo, Oscar, November. And you can get those for people, can't you?
Oh, yeah, we sell a lot of Corbon ammunition here at the Freedom Center. Now, we don't recommend that you practice with it because it's double the price. But what's interesting that we've noticed is that if you take a 115 grain hardball round, standard pressure, very inexpensive, you can find it anywhere, and if you practice with that ammo, you'll have an almost identical recoil signature to a 90 or 100 grain Corbon 9mm round.
Well, that tells me a lot right there. The power in that Corbon is considerable. And, of course, the industry standards are there for a reason. They don't want people to harm their firearms or hurt themselves. And Corbon takes it right up to the edge of the limit where it's right at the engineering limits of these firearms, don't they?
Yes. If you have a well-made 1911 or you have a well-made Glock or a well-made a modern Kel-Tec or a modern FN pistol or a modern CZ pistol, that gun's rated for Plus P ammo. And for our listeners that don't know what Plus P means, SAMI has a specification. SAMI is the organization that controls the specifications for firearms in the United States. And so they have standards. And they have a standard pressure for 9mm ammunition, which is around 19,000 PSI. And what a Plus P round is a round that is actually higher than the SAMI standard, so it has to be stamped on the head stamp of the brass Plus P, and that can be anywhere from 21 to 23,000 PSI. So it's a few thousand PSI higher than the standard set by SAMI for a normal cartridge. And most modern pistols are rated for Plus P ammunition.
Well, that's good to know. That's reassuring. That's very reassuring. What about the factory sights on this little carbine?
It's got peep sights on it that are rather tall, and it has a Picatinny rail on top of the form and on top of the receiver. So you can add a red dot, or you could add night vision, you could add thermal, you could do whatever you wanted with it. It's a really neat little design. I would encourage people to look at that. If they've got a woman in the home and you're not there all the time, I would highly recommend you look at getting a Sub 2000 because you can get one for literally the cost of a Glock pistol.
Well, that's really good to know. That's really good. I was looking at the specs here. They say a 9.5-pound trigger. That sounds a bit on the heavy side to me.
It's nowhere near 9.5. I measured ours at 6.5.
Okay, well that's certainly for a carbine.
Now is that the second version or the first? Can you tell?
Well, I'm at their website here. It says Sub 2000, the factory website.
So there's a Sub 2000, and then there's a Sub 2000, I think, Mod 2.
Okay.
And that's what people didn't like about the first version was the heavy trigger. So if you do buy one, make sure you're getting the updated version with the better trigger and the better stock and that sort of thing.
Okay, well maybe it's an old website. I just popped it up here on my screen. It's hard to say. That's reassuring. And of course, the Glock magazines are relatively inexpensive and readily available, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, and it just uses a standard Glock mag. And the wonderful thing about it is Glock makes a 31 or 33 round 9mm mag that's very inexpensive. Magpul makes Glock mags now, or that's even less expensive than the factory Glock mags. And so for very little money, if you buy 2 Magpul mags for $20, and this particular sub 2000, you're in it for less than $600. And you've got 60 rounds right there with one mag change.
Well, that's all a lot of ammunition, to say the least. If you need more than 60 rounds, you're in deep trouble, I'd say.
Well, we used to say, John, that if you need more than 15 rounds, you're in the wrong place on planet Earth, and you didn't bring enough of your friends with you.
Yep, no, I certainly agree with that. That's a great firearms tip of the week to make people aware of that, Sam. And if somebody wanted you to order one of those Kel-Tec carbines, you could do that for them, couldn't you?
We've got them in stock. I went ahead and ordered a few because, as people see how this weapon performs and they see the cost of it and how inexpensive it is, that it's no more than the price of a handgun, they're just going to go out like hotcakes. And you really have to put one in somebody's hand and let them feel how crisp the trigger is and how little recoil there is. And, we cycled 4 different types of ammo through my wife's gun on Saturday evening, and it didn't miss a beat. It never had a feeding problem, never had an ejection problem. It ran like a sewing machine. And I mean, when a gun gets dirty and has over 100 rounds in it, and it through it without being clean, and then it runs that smoothly and that consistently, okay, now you've got my attention.
Well, at one time, that was the standard for the U.S. military. They had to shoot for the M1 Garand, the M1 carbine, and so forth, so many thousands of rounds under harsh conditions without being cleaned before they would accept it. And that, I believe, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, and I impressed upon my wife this weekend that, she was like, oh, good, let's just load it and stick it in the bedroom. And I'm like, no, we're going to go to the range. We're going to feed it different types of ammo. We're going to see what it likes and what it doesn't like, and we're going to make sure that it's reliable. We're going to test it before you put your life on the line using this to defend yourself. And she was like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. And so we went to the range, and we shot some practice ammo through it, and we shot some more practice ammo through it. And then I said, all right, now that it's good and dirty, let's pull out the hollow points that you're going to use to defend your life with and see if this will run this ammo with the gun being dirty. And boy, did it run. It just never missed a beat. I was really, really happy to see this thing work the way it did.
All right. These types of firearms are not meant for shooting dimes at 100 yards. They're meant for up close and personal defense of innocent human life, aren't they?
Yes, and I would highly encourage everyone who has not read the book Kill or Be Killed by Colonel Rex Applegate to get a copy of that book. He talks about live shooting encounters. This is a British military officer who was used to put down insurrections in colonial Britain territories. And this man was in over 700 actual gunfights and survived every one of them. And he wrote a fantastic book. And it's interesting that he talks about the 4 ranges of engagement. And that's what I want people to really focus on when they read the book, is his 4 ranges of engagement. The closest range is what he calls contact range. You can reach out with your hand and touch somebody. In his 700 encounters, that was the closest range, the most common range he had to shoot at. Second was what he called close range, which was from 3 feet to 6 feet. Then he had mid-range from 6 feet to 12 feet. And then he had long range, which was like beyond 12 feet. And he has different techniques for each one of those ranges. And it's a fascinating read. And when people ask me, well, do you believe what this guy says or what that guy says? I said, go read what Colonel Rex Applegate wrote. The guy with 720 wins and 0 losses. I'm going to go with what he said.
And say again the title of the book, please.
Kill or Be Killed.
Kill or Be Killed by Rex Applegate. It's I've been aware of the book for decades. I quite frankly have not read it, but it's just climbed to the top of my reading list real quick because I never heard a summary of the book in the way you put it. I know that he was assigned to various colonies. Hong Kong is one I recall, to deal with criminals and insurrection and all the rest of that. But 700 deadly encounters without and coming out of it alive is certainly quite phenomenal, isn't it?
Well, you think about the Miami Dolphins, and I think there's one other team in the NFL that went 17 wins and 0 losses, and everybody praises these guys as being so amazing. This guy was in a life-threatening encounters 700 times and never had a loss. And I think that's noteworthy, and I think that he has earned the privilege of people paying attention to what he has to say.
Absolutely. We got a caller on hold here. We got Jerry in Texas. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, gentlemen. Quick question, and then I'll hang up and get back to the barn. Apples to apples, this Caltech Sub 2000, I have looked at it, never fired one. And how would you compare that to that little Ruger, that takedown? I'm assuming you're talking about the 9mm carbine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ruger come out with one here 2 or 3 years ago, I guess now that I'm aware of, or reintroduced it in a 9mm, where the barrel unlocks. It doesn't fold over like the Sub 2000. There's advantages to that. But apples to apples, how would you compare the two? And I'll hang up and listen to your response.
Okay,
Thanks
we
for
have
taking my call.
a break. We have a break. We'll be right there. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Monday, the 20th of August. We're going on a cruise. We don't have word from Sam and his wife yet, but we're expecting it sometime in the first week of October if they'll be able to join us. Regardless, we're going on a cruise. The details are at my website. We're leaving Florida Saturday, the 9th day of February, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be there, of course, Leon Green, and it'll be an opportunity to see people and meet people and talk to folks you would never, ever be able to talk to otherwise. This is Firearms Monday, visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. That Facebook page is Freedom Center USA. Telephone down there, if you need to talk to Sam, is 417-718-2597. Sam, we got a question from Jerry there. You ready to answer it?
Oh, yeah. So we're going to compare the Mod 2 version of the Sub 2000 and the Ruger carbine. I'll say this, that both of them, and we've sold several Rugers, customers are extremely happy with them. You're going to pay about $650, $620, somewhere in that range, depending on the dealer you buy it from, the Ruger 9mm. The Ruger has a 1 in 10 twist rate, where the Keltec comes with a 1 in 16 twist rate. The Ruger weighs 6.8 pounds, which is 2.6 pounds more than the Keltec Sub 2000. So I think the women are definitely going to like the ergonomics and the ability to place a grip, a vertical post grip for the left hand or the non-shooting hand. I think they're going to like the Keltec because it's lighter, and I think they're going to like the ergonomics better. Now, the Ruger has a better recoil pad, The particular ones that we've sold do not take Glock magazines. The Ruger has an aluminum receiver. The Kel-Tec is basically steel. You've got a lot more Picatinny rail on top of the Kel-Tec than you do on the Ruger. The Ruger has a pick rail on top of the receiver, but not the forearm. It's just got the barrel and some iron sights. Someone with a large head and a wide face is going to find it more difficult to get on the sights on the Ruger, where the Kel-Tec, the sights are taller and give you more room. I think there are men that will like the Ruger stock better if you like a traditional hunting stock. If you like something that has more tactical ergonomics, you'll probably like the Kel-Tec. If you're a smaller person, you're probably really going to prefer the Kel-Tec because it's 2.5 pounds lighter. And you can run 30-round mags, Glock mags, in the Kel-Tec. I'm not sure about the Ruger, what different types of mags it will take. The ones that we sold had a proprietary Ruger magazine in it, so you were limited to what the standard magazine was. And I want to say that was 10 rounds.
Well, that's a matter of what would you say? Corporation taking pride in what they sell and not wanting to bring Glock into the picture. A 10-round mag for a 9mm carbine is, in my opinion, not acceptable.
Well, and I could say this. They may make a version. Oh, looks like they do. I just found it here. They make an additional version where you can use Glock mags in the Ruger. You have what they call an interchangeable magazine well. So you could use Ruger mags, or you can convert it to use Glock mags. So you have the same, it looks like you have the same advantage with the Glock mags. I'll say this. If you're a man that is interested in squirrel hunting with this, or precision, 50 to 100 yard shots, and you want to put a good scope on it, I would say that you're not going to mind the 6.8 pounds, and you'll probably like the way the stock fits better on your shoulder, and you'll like the slightly lighter trigger of the Ruger. If you're a woman or you're a guy that wants the ultimate quick-pointing tactical rifle and you want something for inside or something you can fold and put in a backpack, any of those reasons, I think you're going to much prefer the sub-2000 Kel-Tec because it's lighter and you can fold it down to be literally half the length of the Ruger. So each gun has its advantages, but I think for my wife, I think she chose the right one. And I love the stock, the grip, and the forearm on the Ruger, on the Kel-Tec. I like the stock, the forearm, and the forearm on the Kel-Tec. And I think the Ruger's trigger might be a pound lighter and a little crisper and a little faster reset, but the Kel-Tec trigger is plenty good enough to get the job done.
All right. Well, that's good information. During the break, I looked up this book. The actual title is Kill or Get Killed by Colonel Applegate. 436 pages, available at Amazon for $30, delivered if you got a Prime membership. It's $30 for a 400-page book with this kind of information is certainly well worth it, I believe.
Yeah, I think that book should be the beginning of anyone's training on how to defend yourself with a handgun. I don't think there's anything better you could read.
Hold that thought. We got a break. Call number is 800-313-9443.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Republic Broadcasting Network depends on listener support of our advertisers and of our sponsors. We'd like to especially thank all of you who have taken advantage of our fundraiser with Front Sight Bonus. Those who are now Front Sight members, please train as soon as possible for your sake and for that of our nation. And please consider sharing your training and what you've learned when you arrive home. Republic Broadcasting Network has to stop promoting this fundraiser on air and on the website in just a few days. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, president of FrontSite, made a gracious exception to his no media rule for us at Republic Broadcasting Network. Thank you, Dr. Piazza. And once you've been to FrontSite, feel free to call your favorite host and share your experience on the air. We can continue this fundraiser without media help, but it'll be totally up to the listeners to spread the information. Please call Dan Sutterfield in Missouri at 573-465-2356, 573-465-2356. That's 573-465-2356.
My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. There are some folks down in Arkansas I'm helping. They have a massive cave for sale. This thing goes back more than a mile. You could build a couple of houses inside this thing. It is huge. The details at my website at thelibertyman.com. And, of course, the energy cleaner. On my trip to Washington, D.C. last week, we used the energy cleaner, myself and my friend Ben Murphy, on the way up while we were bedded down for the night on the way back. And he'd never been exposed to energy cleaner signal before, and he was amazed. And in fact, I loaned him one when I got back. He wanted it so bad he wanted one, that one we took with us on the trip. So it's on loan to him until he buys his own. Only $285 shipping included. It will help you be alert when you want to be alert. Help you get a great night's sleep when it's time to sleep. I mean, that may sound counterintuitive, but that's what it does. You got pain issues, it will help you. Healing from surgery, that's what a lot of people do when they heal from surgery, is get themselves an energy cleaner. Keep in mind, I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee. The mattress pads that go with it, they do vary in price depending on what you want. We got the twin size, full, queen, king, California king, the handy travel size. Everything's right there at my website, where you can place your order. Or you can just call my toll-free order line, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. I should add also, when it comes to the cruises, if you don't have internet access and you would like our cruise director, Betsy Murphy, to mail you a beautiful full-color flyer, give Betsy Murphy, our cruise director, a call at 636-530-9502. This is Firearms Monday, visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. That Facebook page is Freedom Center USA down in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri. If you need to call Sam, ask him a question, order a product, give him a call at 417-718-2597. Let's continue, Sam.
Hey, John. Our next thermal buy is coming up fairly quickly. So if you want a thermal sight for your weapon system, which we highly recommend, remember, if there's a problem in this country, it's not going to happen during the day. Everything's going to go down at night, and it won't be on the news. So if you want to get your weapon systems up to speed for modern conflict, seriously look at a thermal sight. They also make a great hunting tool for hogs or for predators. You've got coyotes raiding your chicken coop, that type of thing. It's a fantastic thing to have in your toolbox.
I was talking to some friends at lunch yesterday, and they have an awareness of thermal imaging, and it's becoming more commonplace among men and women interested in keeping themselves and their family safe. That thermal imaging is really the way to go. And the lady we were with us yesterday, she said, that'd be great for hunting hogs. I said, yep, you're right. It'd be great for hunting hogs, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I loaned a thermal sight to a friend who went on a hog hunting trip in Texas. And when I walked in his shop with the thermal in my hand, I said, you leaving tonight? He said, yes. I said, well, here, take this with you. He goes, "Oh, I don't need to take that. That thing's expensive. I'd be afraid I'd break it." I said, "Look, it's under warranty. Don't worry about it. Let's get it sighted in on a rifle." And he's like, "Oh, you don't need to do that, Sam." And I said, "No, I want you to try it. I want you to know what this is and how it works." And he said, "Well," I said, "Look, if you don't put it on a gun, I'm going to grab one of your ARs and sight it in and stuff it in your truck." So he said, "All right, I'll take it." The very first night he went hog hunting with this, he texted me, and I still have the text on my phone. It says, "Oh my God, this thing is a game changer."
Well,
and I texted him back and said, "Yes, it is."
Obviously. We've got a caller on hold here. Dan in Missouri. Good morning, Dan.
Gentlemen. I'm sure you're probably aware of this, and probably a long time before I was, but I stumbled on an ammunition that's got a new type of bullet. It's an ARX bullet. Are you aware of that, Sam or John?
Yes.
Right. The tip of the bullet looks like the point of a drill bit.
Yeah, it's got 3 flutes cut in it at an angle.
Yes.
Sam, have you had any experience with that? It comes with growing accolades. I mean, of course, it's pretty much from the people that make it, but it's pretty impressive, the foot-pounds of energy it delivers. Yeah,
well, now you'll notice that this particular ammo that you speak of, it's not made of lead. It's not a standard lead, copper-jacketed, expensive bullet. Okay, I think, is it copper or is it phosphor bronze? Do you know what?
It's a polymer, which is a fancy word, I think, for plastic, and it's got copper in it, little flakes of copper or granules.
It's predominantly a copper bullet. Okay, and so for me, personally, and the tests that I've done with that ammo and thousands of other rounds in ballistic gelatin for SWAT teams and for federal agencies and for other people, I can tell you that I'm not as excited about this round as a lot of people are. The flutes that are cut in it, they cause it to break up into chunks. So you get, what it gives you is several permanent wound channels, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But here's the thing. When you understand terminal ballistics and stopping a threat that has a heart pumping blood through it and is a mammal, and we'll just leave it at that. When you want to shut something down, it's the temporary wound cavity caused by the shock wave that actually keeps the animal from continuing to bite you or the bad guy from continuing to stab you or trying to shoot you. And so when you understand terminal ballistics, you understand that there's a permanent wound channel. That is the area of completely destroyed flesh, bone, tissue that the bullet mass causes as it passes through the body. Now, the second thing that happens is you get a shock wave. And we call that shock wave the temporary wound cavity. It's not permanent. But that shock wave causes a bunch of bruised tissue around the permanent wound channel. And what I don't like about that ammo is the shock wave. The permanent wound channel is reasonably effective in how the bullet breaks up. But what we don't like in ballistic gelatin and having shot some animals with it is we don't like what the shock wave is doing. It doesn't produce as large a shock wave as you can with like a plus P Corbin round, which literally breaks up into small pieces and dumps its energy in less time than this particular round. And so, is it an effective round? Yes, but it's more effective than standard ammo for the reason that they have a lighter bullet running faster, not necessarily because the bullet technology they put in the round is so exceptional, if that makes sense.
I'm hearing what you're saying. And I'm not arguing with you by any means. That doesn't fit the way they explain what happens when it hits soft body tissue. From what I read, go ahead.
Go ahead.
From what I read, the rotation of the projectile imparted by the rifling, that rotation with those flutes that are cut in the nose of the bullet causes the soft body tissue to expand, I guess you would say, and it creates an incredible wound channel. And it won't over-penetrate, but it in all the gel tests they did, of course, I didn't get any hunters come back or anything. I haven't found that yet. They say it's as good as any other round at close combat ranges, like you'd use a pistol for primarily.
Well,
I don't know, man.
What they're claiming is in part true, but not necessarily for the reasons that they're claiming. So here's the thing: what they're talking about is the permanent wound channel and how the bullet breaks apart. That's normally what their marketing material relies on, and all of that is reasonably accurate. The problem is that I've seen plus P rounds and powdered tungsten rounds made of lead, and what they do to ballistic gelatin as well as what this product does. And I'm telling you that the permanent wound channel isn't as important as the temporary wound cavity and the shockwave. And I'm looking for a large shockwave to stop the threat right now. I'm not looking for the permanent wound channel. And we like to tell people the permanent wound channel will determine whether the person you shot lives or dies. What it doesn't determine is whether they stop attacking you in the moment. It's the shockwave reaching a central nervous system area, both with depth and diameter, that give you the best chance of stopping an attack in the moment right now. Because we don't care if an attacker lives or dies. We care that they stop trying to stab us, shoot us, hit us with a club, whatever it is they're trying to do that's aberrant behavior. We want that to stop right now in the moment. So as you understand that from a defensive standpoint, then you understand that what we're really trying to do is live. We want the good guys to live and the bad guy to stop attacking. Whether the bad guy lives or dies is inconsequential as long as we live. And that's why we weight the shockwave and the temporary wound cavity quite a bit higher than what the permanent wound channel does.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I've never had any experience.
I would encourage you. Yeah, you can order your own powder, and if you've got a refrigerator, you can make your own ballistic gel block very cost effectively. And I would highly encourage you to not take my word for anything and to create your own test. Make a couple of gel blocks and shoot one with that round and shoot one with a Corbon plus P round and call back and tell us what you saw.
Well, I probably won't go to that trouble. I'd probably just take your word for it. I'm not questioning you. That's what I call.
I've done the gel test, so I have an opinion because I've actually done the test.
Sure. Well, boy, their foot-pounds of energy is quite impressive out of the different rounds. But that's not the whole story, obviously.
Well, and the foot-pounds is important, and that's one of the reasons their product outperforms a standard 147 grain hollow point. Because when you make a lighter bullet and move it faster, you make more foot-pounds of energy at the same pressure. See, because the equation for energy is mass times velocity squared. So if you double the mass, you double the energy. If you double the velocity, you've got to square that increase, that percent increase. So with their lighter projectile, it's not as dense as lead, and it weighs less than a standard, hollow point in a given application. They can run the velocity up much higher, which is actually a good idea. This will outperform a standard lead bullet. But if you go to 100 grain, like say in a 9mm, you go to a 90 grain Corbon plus P, you get that same bump in energy. You're in the mid 400s in foot-pounds, which is similar to what their round is. But you have the heavier, you have the denser lead, and you have it breaking up into small particles and dumping the energy a little quicker than their particular product, and that's what gives you that bigger shockwave.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your input.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the call. Call number is 800-313-9443. It's real easy for people to get caught up in the promotional material of any given product, whether it's ammunition or otherwise. It could be automobiles, and take that at face value. the value that you bring to the table, Sam, is you do actual independent testing as opposed to asking people to accept at face value what a factory puts out to promote their products. And I think there's a lot of value that you bring to the table because you do your independent testing, and we really do appreciate that, Sam.
Well, I think it's important to test stuff. You know, a lot of people, you listen to me as an expert, or you watch some YouTube video, or you listen to some guy that's got a TV show, and be careful who you choose as your experts. But the other thing I would tell you is never take an expert's word for anything. Don't be afraid to do your own tests and figure out what actually works. And you can make your own ballistic gel blocks cheap. It's no different than making Jell-O. You get some distilled water and you get the right powder, and you pour the water in the container and you blend it up, and you blend the powder into the water and you stick it in the refrigerator, just like making a Jell-O mold, except it's a big rectangular block. And you can make those gel blocks relatively cheap if you have a question about whether ammo is going to perform. And let me tell you what you want. See, a typical 9mm or 147 grain hollow point will blow right through the front and out the back of a 24-inch long ballistic gel block. And it'll stick 10 inches in the mud berm behind the gel block. Where a Corbon Plus P round is going to go in about 2.5, 3 inches. It's going to come completely apart. And from the 4-inch mark to the 9-inch mark, you're going to have something almost as big around as a football. And it's going to do a ton of damage in the area. You know, most people aren't more than 10 inches thick. I mean, if you're more than 20 inches thick, you need to put down the Hostess products. Okay? But the fact is, when you shoot something and it goes 24 inches through a gel block, and you shoot a person with that round, you're poking a hole in them, and you're leaving 70% of the energy in the wall behind them. And you want that energy to transfer into their body and shut them down. And so when you're looking at penetration profiles in gel block, anything that goes past 12 inches, not typically very useful.
Well, that's good information. And of course, people need to educate themselves on this and make themselves aware of this information and plan accordingly. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, all of this stuff can be done ahead of time. Preparation makes for really good luck. It's amazing how that works in the real world.
It is, isn't it? Quite amazing. We got a caller on hold here I haven't heard from for a while. Glenn in Pennsylvania. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Sam. It's been an achy, busy summer. I'm not spending as much time on talk radio as I had been, but enjoying your conversation this morning. I have two questions, one about ammunition, one about hogs. I guess I'll do the ammo first. Sam, I've heard you talking about Plus P a couple times here, and I have two revolvers. One's a .357.
Hold that thought, Glenn. Hold that thought. We'll get your question after the break. Stay tuned.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Jared Moore here on Monday, the 19th of, it is the 19th, right? The 19th of August. Okay, let's continue.
Okay. I was saying, Sam, that you had mentioned plus P rounds a few times here, and I have two revolvers. One's a 4-inch Taurus 357 Magnum, and I have a smaller Smith & Wesson snub nose 5-shot 38 plus P. And I find that, in terms of even just shooting at the range and stuff like that, though my 4-inch revolver can fire the Magnum rounds, I don't like to use them. I think they're loud, they're dirty, they have a nasty recoil, and I mean that if you really need all that stopping power in a defense situation, I guess the Magnum round is superior in that sense. But I'm wondering, is the 38 plus P sort of an underrated? Is the plus P round underrated? Because it's my understanding it gives you substantially more power than a regular 38 special, but it's not as obnoxious as the Magnum rounds. What's your take on the plus Ps?
Well, I think they're better than the standard 38 round if your pistol's rated for plus P ammo. And so what we recommend to people when they look at revolvers for defensive use is that they buy a 357 Magnum, because the 357 Magnums have a sturdier frame and a stronger cylinder, and you can shoot standard 38 right. plus P, and the 357 round. But the weight of the 357 Magnum means the recoil signal into your hand is less. And so here's the thing that you have to understand about handguns. A handgun round is not likely to stop someone to get a one-shot stop. It's not a foolproof thing. And handguns are marginal at best for stopping someone. We like to say 4 to 5 times the weight of the mammal in foot-pounds of energy at impact to reliably shut them down quickly. And you have to go to a 44 Magnum with a really hot round to reach that standard on a 200-pound male. Okay, so understand that if you want to practice with standard 38s because you don't like the recoil and the noise and the nastiness of it, I would highly encourage you to do that. But if you want to defend your life and you have to choose between 38 plus P and the 357 Magnum round, you go with the strongest round you can in a handgun, because, I think the Illinois State Troopers back in the day had the highest one-shot stop rating back when they were using 357 Magnum revolvers with a hot round. I think they're using 115 grain jacketed hollow points that were running really fast out of their handguns, and their stop rate was only 91%, one-shot stops. So that means out of every 100 people shot, 9 are going to continue to attack after you hit them with the first round. And so understand that handguns are marginal. Even in the best scenario, they're marginal. So when you're practicing, go with the light round. When you're defending yourself, go with the strongest thing you got.
We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Jared Moore here, our second hour on Monday, the 19th of August. The prepper tip of the day is to make sure you've got at least 2 gravity feed water filters. I do offer Berkey's for sale. There's other great ones out there. The point being, water is not optional. This is Firearms Monday. We've got Sam Andrews with us, and we're doing a follow-up here with Glenn's question. And I'm not sure who's addressing what now. Was it your turn, Sam, to address Glenn's question?
Well, Sam was just recommending that to go ahead and use 38 specials or plus Ps at the range, but it, was pointing out the greater stopping power of the Magnum round for actual self-defense purposes, which, I sort of understand. I get that. Overall, I was just kind of wondering if the 38 plus P was a bit underrated in general. And then, of course, there's the type of ammunition I had always been impressed with the Glazer safety slugs, where, they're filled with little lead powder, almost type thing where, all of the energy of the bullet is transferred into the target as opposed to, going through and through or something like that. And I had also, my dealer had sold me some Hornady rounds that were like jacketed hollow points, supposed to be good for self-defense. But I still like the idea of the Glazers in that you don't have bullets going through people's houses and such. But anyway, my other question was about hogs. I heard you guys talking about wild hogs. My mental picture is that in the central Midwest states, the wooded areas of the central Midwest states, there are these like vast herds of these wild hogs running around that most people don't even know about, but that these things are really problematic. Is that the case? Are there these vast herds of wild hogs wandering about the central U.S.?
I'll take this, and then Sam will have a follow-up. I had lunch with some folks yesterday who were dealing with wild hogs. If they're around, you're going to know it because they tear up your fields. They're very, very destructive. As far as the size of these herds, they can be anywhere from maybe 6 or 10 to possibly 40 or 50 is some of the larger herds I've heard of. And it's a growing issue, and they're very destructive and cost these ranchers and farmers a lot of money and a lot of aggravation. And the protocols have changed. They used to encourage, in fact, there was billboards I've seen on the interstate highway, encouraged to shoot on sight. They no longer do that because the herd dissipates and they get away. And what they're encouraging now is to work with the Conservation Commission to trap them to get the entire herd as opposed to shooting one or two while the rest run off into the woods. Sam, your follow-up.
I think Sam maybe didn't make it back from the break, John.
Well, he does have to take off for his physical therapy, and maybe he's already done that. Sam, are you still here with us?
Okay, I'm still here. So I don't know who made that I don't know who made that recommendation, but I've probably done a lot more killing than any government people I know. So I'll just say this: if you want to get rid of hogs, you get 5 guys with thermal and suppressed rifles, and you shoot everything in the herd and kill every one of them in about 4 seconds. That's how
that would
done.
My neighbors don't have suppressors or thermal imaging. They just got plain old rifles, but that would certainly do it.
Yeah, I mean if you want to get rid of hogs, that's how. So you get rid of them the same way you get rid of terrorists, But the bottom line is on the hogs is they are a problem in southern Missouri. They're a problem in Arkansas, and they're a problem in Texas. And like John said, they do enormous damage, and there are hundreds of thousands of them out there.
That's amazing. See, we coastal types, east and west coastal types, have no idea about this. And then we hear stories about people going hunting them or flying in helicopters to hunt them and stuff. And it's like, what's going on out there in the central U.S.? Picture like these herds of buffalo,
They even have a problem with wild hogs on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. I mean, there are wild hogs. Once you get a few wild hogs loose and they start breeding, they breed almost like rabbits. It's unbelievable how quickly the herds can grow and how much damage they can do. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, I would hate to hear one crashing through the brush coming towards me. It's like I bet you a lot of people, when they upon their first experience of what these things are like, are quite surprised. So it's interesting.
You're going to want your 357 on you when you run into them. You're not going to want that 38 standard ammo, I'll tell you that.
And there you go. Perfect illustration. All right, thank you, Sam. Thank you, John. Have a great week.
Okay, thank you for the call.
Have a great week.
Call number is 800-313-9443. Yeah, well, Glenn lives on the East Coast. Of course, Philadelphia is a Atlantic Ocean city. And they, unless you're actually here in person, you don't know what it's like here in the middle of the country, do you, Sam?
Yeah, all of these things, the devil's in the details and location, right? The typical cliches. It just depends on where you're at on planet Earth and what time you're there as far as what you're going to run into. And boy, do we have plenty of hogs here in the Midwest and south of here.
Absolutely. And these wild hogs are not like the ones that the farmers keep. They grow these tusks that are very sharp and very long, 4-inch long tusks, and they can just tear a man or a woman apart, can't they?
A male hog or a large female hog will kill you if you don't have a firearm to defend yourself, or you can't get up into a tree in short order.
Well, I told a story here on the air about little Johnny Moore, 8 years old, being treated by a hog, and I think you were on the air with me when I talked about how I started going to the woods with a 6-inch hunting knife fixed to the end of my Daisy Red Ryder so I could protect myself from the wild hogs, because I knew the BB gun by itself wouldn't.
I'm not even sure a BB gun would make a hog mad.
Well, I did shoot it quite a few times. It did manage to make it angry. I got its attention. I got its attention.
That's really funny.
It wasn't funny at the time, I assure you.
I think the caller brings up an important point, though, about the last caller did about revolvers and ammunition. And we highly encourage people to practice with standard ammo because it's less expensive. But like I said, when you go to defend your life, when you load that gun before you put your head on that pillow at night, you're much better off with a .357 Magnum round than even a 38 plus P round. And I think that you have to realize that handguns are marginal. It's not like the movies. You're not going to pull the trigger once and blow the guy 15 feet backwards through a plate glass window. Handguns don't work like that in the real world. And so defend yourself with a rifle, and if you can't do that, at least get a stronger round, as strong a round in a handgun as you can manage.
Absolutely. Well, Hollywood, especially the older films made years ago, decades ago, they make it look like a handgun can do things that are almost magical, and way too often people accept that as being reality, don't they?
Yeah, and if you don't have 4 or 5 times the energy in foot-pounds of the weight of the mammal you're trying to shoot, don't expect magical things to happen.
Yes, well, I shot a groundhog 4 times with a .45, and the first 3 were in the torso, and it was still moving and still suffering, and I did a final force shot to put it out of its misery. And I was shocked at the ability of a relatively small animal to still being conscious and moving after being hit 4 times, solid hits with a .45 ACP. And these animals can be pretty tough to kill, can't they?
Yeah, imagine a 220-pound guy on meth or on heroin. You know, it breaking into your home. I mean, and see, here's the other thing. You know, when you look at trying to defend yourself with a handgun, ammunition that works great in the summertime when people are wearing T-shirts doesn't work so good with a biker wearing a sheepskin leather jacket in the cold when he breaks into your home with that heavy jacket on and a sweater underneath. Hollow points plug with clothing material and don't perform. You have all kinds of issues with handgun rounds that you don't have with rifle rounds. So if you can defend yourself with a rifle, do it. If you can't, use the strongest handgun that you possibly can. I can't emphasize that enough.
Absolutely. Well, there's the documentation backing you up. What you're saying is absolutely rock solid, and we know that. People need to understand that, and sometimes said that the purpose of a handgun is to fight your way back to your rifle, and there's certainly some truth to that, isn't there?
Yes. When we train SWAT teams and they're in a hostage situation, and they have a weapon trained on a hostage, we teach the snipers that the only shot that you can take is a headshot. You've got to put a supersonic rifle round in the cranial vault to keep this person from having a sympathetic reaction on the trigger and possibly killing an innocent hostage. And so when you're doing that, you understand that it takes a supersonic round from a rifle to the center of the head to actually keep someone to be 100% sure they can't pull the trigger. You realize that handguns aren't the latest and greatest thing for defending life. And we had a situation in St. Louis County years ago where Captain Gary Cruz of St. Louis County and Sergeant Whaley entered a kitchen from two different doors. And the perp was in the middle and had the woman of the house by the neck and a revolver to her head. And Sergeant Whaley shot this guy 3 times in the head with an MP540. That's a subgun shooting a handgun round about 200 feet per second faster than a handgun does. And he hit the perp 3 times in the head with this pistol round out of a subgun. The revolver went off into the ceiling, discharged a round, missed the woman's head by just a tiny margin, and this guy lived in a mental hospital for 7 years in the state of Missouri.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. That's
and
off the charts.
Keep in mind, that's a 40 Smith & Wesson round, plus P hollow point, Federal Hydroshock, out of an MP540 with a much longer barrel, making much more energy than that round would make out of a handgun.
That's extraordinary, to say the least. So this guy was on life support for those 7 years?
No, wasn't on life support, but he wasn't terribly functional. You know,
I wouldn't think so.
It's an amazing thing when you actually are in the business of killing and designing things that kill, and you do live tissue tests and shoot hogs and shoot sheep and shoot deer and shoot elk in the neck, and you test all of these things, and you're stunned continually over the years at how often what looks like a really good shot doesn't do the job.
Amazing. Before I forget, Sam, how long do we have you before you need to run off for your physical therapy?
You know, I'm good till 10 o'clock. My appointment's actually at 12 today. It's next week. I'm at 9:45.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll just keep that in mind. There's no substitute for experience, and that's what you bring to the table at Freedom Center USA, where men and women can come down there and get world-class training from world-class instructors at a world-class facility. We need to talk at some point about our next concealed carry class, don't we, Sam?
Yeah, we should. I don't think we have anything on the schedule for September, so we need to make that happen.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that privately. I don't want to use up airtime for it. But the first one we did went well, and I'm looking forward to the next one, getting back into the saddle, so to speak. We drew people from... I know from one student was from Illinois. Was there any other states outside of Illinois? Do you know offhand?
We had Illinois, Arkansas, and Missouri.
All right, three different states for that class.
3 different states for that class.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's good exposure for you, and it's good for the students, of course. There's no substitute for training. High quality, world-class training is... and maybe, I should say, may make the difference between life and death when you find yourself in a situation where you're facing a criminal. I've faced several criminals over the years myself, and I was very grateful for the training that I'd had and the experience I had when it came time to confront these criminals. Sometimes you may think you're about to confront a criminal, and it ends up being a harmless drunk who's just simply lost. I've had that happen to me also. And having the training helps give you the ability to analyze a situation and not make a massive mistake, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, getting good advice from really experienced people is important. I've got a story I'd love to tell you on air about why getting good advice matters. Why choosing your expert is okay. I had a woman come in my shop one day, wanted to buy a handgun. She was a single lady. She had a college-age son. and she wanted to buy a handgun, and she was going back and forth between these two handguns, and I said, look, I would choose this one. And she said, why? I said, do you see this little pick rail under the barrel? You can put a tactical light on that handgun, which allows you to see in your home. When you pick up that gun in the dark, someone breaks into your house, you can see in the dark. You can turn that light on. Well, guess what happened not just 6 weeks after she bought the handgun? Her son called her and said, oh, Mom, I've got to take these tests. I won't be home until Wednesday for Thanksgiving break. And he was at Mizzou, at the college there in Columbia. And so something happened to his schedule. He didn't have to take the test, or he got to take it a day early. And his friend didn't have any test to take and didn't have anywhere to go for Thanksgiving. So he said, hey, why don't you come home with me? My mom will make us a good Thanksgiving dinner. You'll enjoy Thanksgiving with us. And the guy said, sure, no problem.
Hold that thought. We'll get back to the story after the break.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms, or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356, or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Jared Moore here on Monday, the 19th of August. We're going on a cruise. Valentine's Day will be right in the middle of it for you folks out there who want a romantic getaway with your significant other. It will be a lot of fun. I'll be there. Leon Green will be there. We're hoping that Sam and his wife will be there. That's not confirmed yet. That'll be confirmed, we hope, in a few weeks. The details at my website at thelibertyman.com. If you don't have internet access, give Betsy Murphy a call. She'd be glad to mail you a full-color brochure. That's 636-530-9502. This is Firearms Monday, visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. That telephone number down there in Lebanon is 417-718-2597. Sam, did you get that bolt that I shipped you? No, wait, I shipped it direct to...
I have not.
No, I apologize. I shipped it direct to Florida. Yeah, upon your recommendation. Yeah, you said it would be...
Yeah, I haven't seen the bolt yet, but I'm hoping you get it coated.
Yeah, but I did send it directly to Florida. I apologize. So that's in the works. Taking your advice and getting a bit of an upgrade on that bolt-action rifle I've had for about 30-something years. But in the modern day, we're learning a lot about upgrades and how a mediocre rifle can become a high-performing rifle, don't we?
Sure, if it's worked over by a guy that knows what he's doing, you can make some what you would say mid-price rifles really, really accurate.
Well, that's encouraging because I know many of the men listening and possibly some of the women may have a rifle sitting in their safe that has not seen the light of day for maybe 20 or even 30 years, sitting there patiently waiting to be brought out of the dark and put back into action and possibly get some upgrades to the rifle itself or the optics or both, and take a mediocre performing rifle and make it into a real, as we might say, nail driver, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Well, John, I want to go back to the story we started right before the break.
Let's do that. Let's get that story.
We were talking about a specific upgrade. I had a woman wanting to purchase a pistol. I convinced her to buy a particular pistol so she could mount a light to the pistol. And she bought the pistol with the light. And then 6 weeks later, she's back in the store telling me this story. And her son showed up from Thanksgiving a day early from college, came home from college a day early with a friend. Now, she had gone to bed. He had not told her that he was coming home, and he had not told her he was bringing a friend. Well, his friend was a pre-med student from Central America. She had been having problems with illegal Hispanics breaking into neighborhood homes, which is why she was scared and came in to buy the pistol in the first place. So here she is asleep. She leaves the door open from the kitchen when she took the trash out, forgot to lock it. So her son and his friend walk in at midnight, coming home from college, and he's been driving for 2 hours. He has to pee. So her son goes in the bathroom in the hallway to pee and leaves his friend, who's wearing a sweatshirt and a hoodie and holding a phone in his hand, and is a relatively dark-skinned guy in this white woman's home. And the dog starts barking, and she wakes up and grabs her pistol. She goes into the hallway and sees this stranger standing there. And she said, "Sam, I almost shot him." And I said, "Well, why didn't you shoot him?" She said, "Because I remembered I had a light on my pistol, and I turned it on. I turned the light on, and I shined it on him, and I saw that he had a phone in his hand, and that he was a younger guy, and that was just enough of a delay that my son walked out of the bathroom and said, 'Mom, put the pistol down.'"
Pretty scary stuff, and very fortunate she had that light on that pistol, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's an example of, be careful who you take advice from as experts. And, if you're going to learn how to use a handgun, get training at the right place, get the right equipment, it's not enough just to get training. You've got to have equipment that works in the situations you're likely to defend yourself in.
Absolutely. Well, I've been in similar situations myself, and so far have avoided tragedies. And I would not want to have to live the rest of my life knowing that I had shot an innocent person. And knock on wood, I intend to keep that record. And that's where the training comes in. That's where the proper selection of equipment comes in to make sure we avoid making these massive mistakes that can't be changed. Once that bullet is out the end of the barrel, you can't bring it back, can you?
No, you can't. And thank goodness that woman remembered that she had that light on the pistol and remembered to turn it on, and also remembered the training that we gave her to look at his hands. If she hadn't seen a phone in his hand and just looked at him with that dark hoodie on, she would have shot a Hispanic pre-med student that was going to be a doctor and help hundreds of people in his life. And she would have killed that young boy if she had not had a pistol with a light, remembered her training, remembered to use the light, and remembered to look at the hands to do the threat assessment.
That's really scary, and it had a good outcome. We have a bottom-of-the-hour break. Stay tuned.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Monday, the 19th of August. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on in the world, just scroll down to section where we get the updates every day. Open source intelligence, got bright red letters there. I have a friend, he's a former counterintelligence agent. He's now retired. He puts this together every day. He started as a service for friends that he's worked with over the years. I asked him, and he graciously gave permission to post it on my website every day. So his outreach has gone from 24 people to thousands of people. It's a lot of work, and it's well worth your time if you want to stay up to date on what's going on. Also, my website, of course, you'll find energy cleaners for sale. I just had correspondence this morning from a lady back in Maryland who's bought, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 of these already. She wants to help somebody else, so she's ordering another one today. And people wouldn't buy the second, or let alone the third or fourth one, if the first one didn't work, would they? Of course not. If you have sleep problems, you want to sleep as good as a small child, like I do every night, get yourself an energy cleaner. You have pain issues, doesn't matter what the source of the pain is. Arthritis pain is one of the main ones. Get yourself an energy cleaner. Keep in mind I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee. Details are at my website where you can place your order for the energy cleaner and the mattress pad to go with it. Or you can call my toll-free order line 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. This is Firearms Monday. We're taking your question, calls, and comments here at Republic Broadcasting at 800-313-9443. Let's continue, Sam.
Yeah, we were just talking about a situation where a woman relied on her training and made the right choice and didn't shoot a college student that had come home with her son for Thanksgiving break, and her son failed to tell her that he was bringing a guest home with her. And he showed up a day early, and of course they woke her up in the middle of the night as they came in from their 2-hour drive. And I think it's important to note that this woman remembered to look at the person's hands as part of her threat assessment. And it was that level of wisdom that kept her from shooting the stranger in her home while her son was in the bathroom and not visible to her.
Yes, well, it was a situation of high drama with high stakes, and it could have had a very tragic outcome, to say the least. But I think there were some guardian angels watching over that situation, weren't there?
Boy, what an incredible situation from a timing standpoint. The way that she was woken up, the timing that she walked into the hallway with her son in the hallway bathroom, trying to relieve himself from a long trip. And then this stranger standing in her hallway in the dark with a hoodie on and a hood over his head because it was cold out. I mean, you talk about an image that would strike fear in a woman's heart when she's home alone. I mean, that had to be terrifying for her. But thank God she had the self-control not to pull the trigger.
Well, I wouldn't restrict that to just women. Any normal person would be very alarmed seeing a stranger in their kitchen under those circumstances, and they should be. Of course they should be. That's a normal, expected reaction, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can't change human nature in these situations, and I tell people, they read stuff like, they ask me questions all the time. Do you really lose fine motor control when you have adrenaline in you and you're scared or whatever? And I explain to them, I can unequivocally say from at least 12 examples in my life, from climbing on cliffs to being shot at, you absolutely lose fine motor control when you get an adrenaline dump into your bloodstream.
Right, and there's also the phenomenon of tachyphrenia when you're in the middle of it as well, which some people refer to as tunnel vision, which tunnel vision is one of the parts of tachyphrenia. And one of the things that happens in professional training like you give is you recreate, or you create, I should say, situations that get the adrenaline pumping and can get tachyphrenia going as well, don't you?
Well, we do we do several things in that regard. So originally, on the basic courses, we're just working on fundamentals of how to keep the gun running, how to move, how to think, that type of thing. But then in the more advanced courses, we up the stress level and we try to create those scenarios, and we see if the training we've given them holds up and defeats the elements of tachyphrenia that cause you problems. And one of those is tunnel vision. So after you're done dealing with the threat, we always have people look to the left and look to the right and open their field of vision. So there's techniques that you choose to create habits so that even if you do get tunnel vision for a second, you break out of that immediately so that your situational awareness expands and you don't get into trouble by having tunnel vision for any length of time.
The example I use when I train people in concealed carry is automobile accidents. That's unfortunately a common experience for most American adults, but there is quite a percentage of American adults who've never been in an automobile accident serious enough to kick in tachyphrenia. The percentage of men who play football is relatively small these days. Baseball is perhaps more common, but it's unless you've experienced tachyphrenia, it's hard to give a verbal description of what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it affects everything in your body, everything in your brain. It changes what you're looking at. It changes how you think. It changes the feelings that are normal to your body. Everything just goes bizarre, and you don't even feel like a normal person in those circumstances.
Well, you're not a normal person, and it's maybe it's time to back up a bit and tell people what tachyphrenia is. It's a medical term. The two parts of the word are tachy and phrenia. Tachy is fast, phrenia is brain activity. The example I use is Babe Ruth could walk up to a record playing 72 RPMs, 72 times per minute spinning, and read the label because he had kicked in tachyphrenia so many thousands of times being at bat in baseball that he could intentionally kick in tachyphrenia anytime he wants to. Here's what happens with tachyphrenia. Your brain activity speeds up, which gives the impression of time slowing down, which also has an effect on your hearing. What you're hearing is slowed down also. It's God's way of giving you a way to survive something that may kill you otherwise. And if you're in an automobile accident, many people will say it seemed like it was in slow motion. That's tachyphrenia. You'll hear baseball players or read about baseball players saying that they can see the stitching on a baseball going 100 miles an hour. They're not making it up. They really can see the stitching. So there's benefits to tachyphrenia. If you understand what's happening, why it's happening, and incorporate it into your training, you can take advantage of tachyphrenia and do things you could not possibly do otherwise, can't you, Sam?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And as a racer, I used to race super bikes where you're going 200 miles an hour down the straightaways and you're dragging your knee on the ground at 160 miles an hour in the big fast turns. And it takes a couple of weeks of racing if you've been off for the winter or the season has been over and you haven't ridden in a couple of months at speed. It literally takes about 3 weeks to being on the track at speed for you to be able to kick that in, and everything slows down to where you can deal with it at speed. And it's an amazing thing that happens to your brain. The funniest part about it is, from a racer's perspective, is when you get in the van or the truck or the semi to drive home and you're doing 65 on the highway, it feels like you could get out and walk next to the truck, and you're actually doing 60, 70 miles an hour.
That's amazing. We got a caller on hold here. We got John in Louisiana.
Morning.
Morning, John.
Go ahead. You're on air.
Yeah, y'all were talking about the 357 Magnum, and I was just wondering why you think that an engineer hasn't maybe come up with a 357 round where they just make it caseless and that you could put it in a carbine type weapon. Do you think that would be a practical application at close quarters combat?
Well, I think that anything in close quarters combat that's a handgun is not good. Okay.
Okay.
And what do I care for close quarters combat?
But you'd be shooting it out of a carbine flint barrel.
Sure, which makes it better, but that takes you from, 460 foot-pounds to 600 foot-pounds. And what you really need in a close-quarters battle situation is 1,000 foot-pounds. And a bullet that performs properly. So it would be, so you are exactly right, it would be significantly better, but still not at the threshold I want to bet my life on.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll take my call.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the call, John. We appreciate it. The call number is 800-313-9443. Well, we're getting some questions answered out there, and that's our job, is to get the questions answered, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in special operations that will tell you that the only thing a handgun's good for is to fight your way to a rifle. And there's so much truth in that. I can't even begin to tell you how true that is. But I got to share this with you, John. A friend of mine just sent me something while we were on break, and it's a picture of a young lady in Walmart, a young curvy lady in Walmart, wearing a very dark black T-shirt that has pink letters on it on the back, and it says, "My boyfriend said guns make him uncomfortable. So I told him we should both see other men."
Okay.
I just love that. That's when you look at what happened in the Springfield Walmart in Missouri, where everybody freaked out. You know what I did? I went on Facebook and I posted a bunch of pictures of 18 to 20-year-old Israeli girls walking around with their M4s on the streets of Israel. And nobody was freaking out. Everybody was enjoying life and having a good time. And so we really do have a problem in this society of irrational fears, and I blame the men. The men that are supposed to be acting like men and they're not acting like men. If guns make you uncomfortable and you're a adult male in America, seek professional help.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and of course that would fill up the psychologist offices with a bunch of soy boy liberals, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but there was a funny scenario where some Vietnam veterans were coming home. They landed in California. They hadn't seen continental United States in over 2 years, and there were these protesters at the airport. And one was a long-haired hippie guy and his girlfriend, and they were saying these horrible things to these veterans as they were walking in the terminal. And one of the veterans stopped because the girl was kind of cute. He said, "Hey, what's your name?" And she said, "Well, my name's Diane." And he looked at her boyfriend, who was saying horrible things to him. He said, "What's your girlfriend's name?" And I just died laughing.
I like that. Well, it's I'm pretty active in my community in various organizations, and frequently I've had young women, especially those under age 40, and tell me, "John, I can't find a real man to date." And that seems to be a pretty common thing these days in this country, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, a lot of younger women are dating older men because the boys their age haven't grown up and they haven't matured like men mature. And women are looking for a man. They're looking for stability. They're looking for financial stability. They're looking for maturity. They're looking for someone who can protect them. And, a lot of people say, "Oh, women don't need a man to protect them." No, they don't. But they are looking for a man who's capable of protecting himself. And it's interesting that society has gone the direction it has with feminization of men.
I've heard it said, I believe with some accuracy, that women's liberation ends at the beginning of a dark parking lot.
Yeah, and there's definitely some truth to that. But when you think about what they did to this kid that walked into Walmart open carrying his rifle and his handgun, and he was carrying a phone and pushing a cart. He didn't have his hands on his gun. He wasn't threatening anybody. He was talking to people. He was happy. He was this and that. and it was the manager of Walmart that freaked out and pulled the fire alarm and caused all of this alarm. Well, they charged the kid with terrorism by causing panic, when in fact he caused no panic, and the manager of the Walmart pulling the fire alarm and screaming, "Everybody get out, there's a madman with a gun," is the one that caused all the panic. And we can't look at that situation as adults and tell the truth now in America. We have to pretend it's something that it was not.
Well, I understand what happened and why, and I believe the young man did not exercise very good discretion in wearing body armor and so forth.
He didn't have body armor on. He had a tactical vest holding magazines. He didn't have any body armor on. That was a lie in the media.
It's difficult to tell the difference between the two, but I understand the difference myself. Regardless, he was cutting a pretty imposing image, to say the least, and luckily it did not have a bad outcome in terms of anybody getting hurt.
Well, every policeman that walks in a Walmart has body armor and has a gun and has a taser and has extra magazines, and nobody freaks out then. And, you know, we've got women
That's true.
In the IDF walking the streets of Israel with M4s on a sling, M16s, and A2s on a sling.
Right.
And nobody's freaking out there.
Israeli school teachers routinely wear M1 carbines when they're on a field trip with their students also.
And I think what it shows is that society, in society, we're pretty much uneducated from the sense that we don't know what a real threat looks like, and we don't know what a non-threat looks like. And so many people panic just at the sight of a gun, whether it's a threat or not, and whether the person's a threat or not. And I think that's really disappointing.
It is. Here's our last break. We'll be right back.
Public Broadcasting Network depends on listener support of our advertisers and of our sponsors. We'd like to especially thank all of you who have taken advantage of our fundraiser with FrontSite Bonus. Those who are now FrontSite members, please train as soon as possible for your sake and for that of our nation. And please consider sharing your training and what you've learned when you arrive home. Republic Broadcasting Network has to stop promoting this fundraiser on air and on the website in just a few days. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, president of FrontSite, made a gracious exception to his no media rule for us at Republic Broadcasting Network. Thank you, Dr. Piazza. And once you've been to FrontSite, feel free to call your favorite host and share your experience on the air. We can continue this fundraiser without media help, but it'll be totally up to the listeners to spread the information. Please call Dan Sutterfield in Missouri at 573-465-2356, 573-465-2356. That's 573-465-2356.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Jared Moore here on Monday, the 19th of August, visiting with Sam Andrews. His telephone number down there at Lebanon, Missouri, Freedom Center, USA, is 417-718-2597. Sam, we've got about 3 minutes here to get out the information you think we should do, sir.
Well, I found some interesting articles this morning about the Air Force creating robots to fly aircraft. So they can now convert an aircraft to a drone by placing a robot in a standard aircraft that is normally flown by humans. And that robot took its first flight last week. And I think when you look at Google, who is the owners of Google who have purchased all these robotics and drone and artificial intelligence technology companies, I honestly believe we've got less than 5 years before tyranny on planet Earth makes a paradigm shift. And I think that we better fix it before we get to 2025, or it may be very, very difficult to fix. You know, for 6,000 years, men had to convince other rough men to visit violence on people to carry out their plans for being a tyrant. And that's all about the change. Now it's not who can give a speech and motivate or pay men to do their dirty work for them. It's about to become who can program and arm the most drones and robots. And that will be a complete paradigm shift from where we've been for 6,000 years.
Well, I'm more focused on what's going to happen in 14 months myself. When I was in Washington last week, I got a private confirmation at the very highest levels. There was a lot of concern about what will happen following the November 2020 election. And I agree with you. The technology is off the charts crazy with these drones, and it could be a game changer. I absolutely agree with you, Sam.
Well, I think it's important to note that if Trump signs any gun control whatsoever, he will not win in 2020, and we're in big trouble in this country. Here's the way the Electoral College maps out. If Trump loses 2%, if he alienates 2% of his base in 2 of 5 key states, Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, he has no path in the Electoral College to win the presidency a second time. And the Republican rhinos like Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio have finally figured out a way to get Trump out of office. And what they're going to do is they're literally going to convince him to sign bipartisan gun control, and that will absolutely seal his fate in the 2020 election. And don't think that gun owners are going to go and vote for a Democrat. They're not. What they're going to do is they're going to become disenfranchised, and they're just not going to go vote at all.
Right. Or they'll vote for the Libertarian candidate or the Constitution Party candidate just as a protest vote.
Yep.
Well, I agree with you, and I hope that I know President Trump is surrounded by very wise advisors, among other things, that this word does get back to him. We're hearing some statements from the president regarding mental illness being more of an issue than the guns themselves, and hopefully he'll figure that out. Sam, thank you. We'll have you back next Monday.
Have a great week, John. Take care.
Okay, that's it for the day. Get medical supplies, energy cleaning, or essential oils now while you can. Your firearms ammunition never ever get the guns. Please have a fun, safe, productive day, and God bless America.